Hello, welcome to another weekly update. I hope you've had a really great week. There's lots of things been happening, lots to talk about. It's Friday. The weather's not too bad. Yeah, it's all good. All right, so what's been happening? Well, plenty has been happening. Obviously, we've got Microsoft Ignite coming up quite soon. Less than a month away now, sort of 20 odd days. I'm putting some videos together about Microsoft Ignite, everything that we know at the moment, so look out for those coming over the weekend. I'm going to try and get one out tonight if I can, but we'll just have to see. So that is definitely all happening, and you'll kind of probably see a pulling back of news in the next 20 days because, project managers and program managers like to make big announcements at Ignite, and Microsoft likes to have those announcement points at Ignite and build and inspire. So yeah, you might see some kind of tailing off of announcements. But, that just means that when Ignite does come, it's really exciting. Reminder about Ignite, it's free to attend. It's going to be a virtual event this year, so anybody can register. So do go and make sure you do that. Register.ignite.microsoft.com. Anyone can go and do that. Like I say, I've got a full video coming up in the next 24 hours about exactly kind of what we know about Ignite right now. So that's interesting. Other things that are happening. There's a blog post out on the Microsoft Teams developer blog post announcing the public preview of Microsoft Graph change notifications delivery via Azure Event Hubs. Whoa, and what is that? Okay, so let's wind it back in a bit. Microsoft Graph change notifications is a relatively new model and a way of interacting with Microsoft Graph that's slightly different from a regular API that you might call get on or post or whatever. This is it's more like webhooks. You set up a subscription to a notification service, and that notification service will call you back every time something happens. It's a much more scalable, efficient, developer-friendly way of finding out when stuff happens. It's better than polling. Developers prefer it because it's cleaner code. I think Microsoft probably prefers it as well, if I'm honest, because it really means that their services are under less load because they're not having all these developers polling all the time. So anyway, change notifications are a thing. It's not ubiquitous across all of Graph, so you just need to be aware that you can't be used for everything, but for the services and the workloads that support it, you should definitely look into it. It's a really nice way of keeping up to date with what's changing with data without doing polls all the time. However, the model that every developer follows for using change notifications is really similar. You have to set up a subscription in code, which you do using traditional post requests, and you have to maintain that subscription over time. So, and what happens, the notification service will call you back by calling your API endpoint with the data, and either it's the data or it's a placeholder, like a token to the data that you can go and get. And that's fine. And for many developers, many projects, that's a perfect situation, and that's just right. However, that might also be just a bit of overhead that is kind of unwelcome if you're trying to pull this stuff together, and you might be looking for an easy way, or it might just be that the rest of your infrastructure is all low-code solutions built around Azure, and this just feels like a burdensome overhead to have to write code for. This is where this announcement comes in and this public preview. You can set up these change notifications to deliver your notifications directly to an Azure Event Hub, meaning that's a no-code solution right there to set up the change notification into Azure Event Hubs. You've then got the data flowing into Event Hub, which is perfect for this kind of stuff. It's made to handle, this kind of streamed traffic at load. It will support up to the biggest tenants of a workload of information from Graph. And this mechanism is supported on all the different workloads that currently support change notifications. So that's really cool. So this might just be perfect for you if you were thinking you were going to have to write the code for change notifications, or in fact you already have written the code for change notifications, but all you were doing was putting it into an Azure resource anyway. Actually, you can cut that corner now and put it straight into Event Hub. So that's really good to see. So That is in public preview right now, so obviously you shouldn't be using it for anything production, but it's really good to see that it's there and it's coming. There's a whole blog post about it that goes into a little bit of detail about the things that I've just said, actually, about why you'd want to do this, and what some of the benefits of using event hubs will bring you. There's some kind of gotchas, if you like, at the bottom, instructions, I suppose. There's things you don't have to do anymore, which is great. There are things you do have to do. You'll need to provision the event hub. You'll need to provision a key vault, and you will need to use the... well, it's not clear that you need to use it. I think the recommendation maybe is that you use the Event Hubs SDK to receive those change notifications. I think at that point, once it's in Event Hubs, it's just like any other piece of data in Event Hubs, and you can do whatever you want to do with it. So that's really good to see. I like this approach, actually, of Microsoft figuring out actually every developer under the sun, if they want to interact with our service, is going to have to do this really similar thing. So why don't we cut the corners for them and keep their life easy? So I like that. Next up, Teams App Submission API is now generally available. So what on earth is that? So this was hidden. Hidden is the wrong word. So this was as part of a big blog post, a wrap up of everything that is new in August 2020 that came from the Teams team. This is a great blog post. These monthly series I really like as a way of just catching up and making sure you don't miss anything that happened in the month. So you probably already know about some of these things. They're not all very specific to platform development on Teams. So things like devices and the spotlight and all that stuff. But there is a section for developer and platform. And so the thing right at the top of this is the Teams App Submission API. So that's now gone from beta to GA. This is nice because this allows developers, this is really kind of for big organizations, let's get this straight. So not solely, obviously, but this is a challenge that large organizations have right now, where they've got developers building apps for solving all sorts of problems. And that's really good to see, and citizen developers coming on making their own Teams apps as well, and they need to get them into the tenants app catalog, but that needs to be a process that is managed by IT. There's compliance, there's governance, there's all sorts of requirements in place, large enterprise type problems, but this is a submission API that can help make that easier. It allows developers to automatically submit their application via an API into the system. It then makes kind of it easy for IT admins to discover those apps, approve them, package them, and deploy them. So this is like a really nice way of tying it all together. This is Microsoft taking away, identifying and then removing a potential pain point for developers writing line of business applications for organizations and getting those deployed inside organizations. It's clear Microsoft has done their research here, and I think their homework, and kind of thought, I see all these developers, but actually those applications never make it through IT. So not the fault of IT, it's the process, right? And there's so many things to think about. Anything that can make that easier and remove that friction, I think is a really good thing. So that's great to see. There's some other things on here as well that are worth calling out. Graph resource specific consent we've talked about before a couple of times. And then this, so support for native mobile device capabilities for Teams apps, which is really interesting. So if you're building your applications, including the ones that you build through Power Apps, you'll be able to do things like capture images through the camera or get GPS coordinates. This is really nice. This is kind of being supported by a new API, so it's coming to the Teams mobile apps. It's been in the desktop client for a while, I think, but now it's coming. It's these kind of, you can see it on the screen here actually, kind of app permissions that you can seed out to your app from within Microsoft Teams. And then some things that we've talked about before, Power Automate actions and triggers for Microsoft Teams. I'm going to go into some more detail on those, I think, in the coming weeks, because there's a lot of interest there, but also some questions. So I'm going to do kind of probably something dedicated for those, just to kind of cover off the new capabilities and how you might use them as well. This is definitely a week for kind of news. I think it's interesting. I think these might form maybe some Ignite announcements, or they're going to be the subject of some Ignite sessions, possibly, which is why some of these announcements are coming out now. Or maybe there's just so much good stuff coming out that they have to get this stuff out in order to make way for the even better, bigger announcements that are coming later for Ignite. Who knows? Anyway, another announcement of something that is moving into GA, and that is lists. So this is kind of interesting. So Microsoft Lists in Teams is now generally available. So it's been in it's been in preview for a little while. And as of yesterday, via this blog post, it was promoted into general availability. So that's for all commercial and GCC customers. If you're on a different type of cloud, this might not apply to you. So this was talked about at Build. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. There you go. So this was talked about at Build, and it's a kind of new application. It's a bit more fundamental than that as well. It's not just another to-do app. Like, it ties together quite a lot of different things under the hood that are kind of fundamental to Office 365 and how data is stored, and so it'll surface quite a lot of interesting information, and also as a developer it's interesting because there's APIs behind all these as well. So if your application is one where it makes sense to store kind of lists of things, you might well want to get on board with this as being the kind of place to store them, I think. There's some templates as well, which is interesting. They come with some templates very specific to industry, so patients, loans, and incidents, so very specific to vertical industries. That's interesting to see. I think lists have obviously wide appeal because everybody loves a list across the board. But it's interesting to see Microsoft focusing in on very specific industries and tailoring the templating and making it like, here are some package templates that you can take and use. It's interesting to see the integration of lists into Teams, the way you can have conversations alongside lists as well. So, and I'm quite interested in the APIs that go alongside these to help make managing lists easier, and also enable kind of developers to bring third-party information into lists as well. Okay, so that's almost everything. There's just time to tell you about another episode of Talking Stuff, which I did this week with Lindsay. This week was spent kind of talking about prioritization techniques. So what do you do? Because there's so much stuff happening at the moment. It feels like things are a bit like, I think maybe people just kind of dive bombing your desk has been replaced by people dive bombing you on Teams, or like Outlook or whatever. It feels like more and more stuff is coming in, and it's kind of really hard to prioritize that stuff all the time. And so how do you do that? What are the good techniques for prioritization? Do you have a system? So we talk a little bit about the things that we think work for us, and some ideas that we might try out as well. It's kind of lighthearted. It's fair. It's non-technical, only in that it pertains to the industry we work in. But I think it's really important to talk about this stuff. So we're trying to keep this cadence going of talking regularly about the kind of challenges of just working in dev and that process, and the kind of softer, like non-technical challenges and experiences that we're having. All right, so that's everything from me, I think, for today. Like I say, it feels like it's shaping up to be a really interesting couple of weeks in the run-up to Ignite. I'm quite excited about some things that I'm going to try and do in the run-up to Ignite, but we'll see. But like I say, look out for that video as well in the next kind of 24 hours, talking about everything that we know at Ignite, because I'm saving it for a special video rather than one of these, because there's just too much to talk about in one of these as well. Really busy week. But whatever it is you're doing, take a break, have a good weekend. Hope the weather holds, and get outside and look after yourself and all of that stuff. Great. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you again